of erotic intelligence, right? Because that really suited me, and is suitable still. But the newest emanation of that is the sensual intellectual, and that came through my group coaching program, right? And so we got erotic intelligence, the sensual intellectual, all of that is me. That's why I'm here, right? Okay, so if you're new, welcome. Why should a male listen in? Because he likes to listen to feminine wisdom, because he adores the women in his life, because he is very interested in growing his own feminine energy. And when we talk about feminine energy, we're talking about the yin and the yang, not gender, right? So a male should listen because spirit drew him in to listen. He should listen because he finds himself to be elevated here. That's why. That's why anybody should listen. Okay. And I always encourage people, if you are drawn in because you like the tone of my voice, or you like something about my presentation, you like the topic, spirit has drawn you here, and I say, welcome, welcome. And don't get me wrong, this is not for everybody. Some people do need to click off the live. Some people do not need to come in. But other people who feel drawn should be here, and I welcome you. Okay, so with that being said, I'm still like looking for the screen to light up with hearts. You do that by tapping the screen if you're new, and I'm going to share this live with a few other people here, just my online community. And let's see. All right, so I have shared. So let's begin. Part of my spiritual journey includes, I should say, yoga, right? Not just doing yoga, but being infused with the philosophy and the practices of yoga. And so a very real part of my everyday life is moving with energy, through energy, in energy, shifting energy, alchemizing energy. All of that is super important. And so today I want to talk about the chakra system, and that's part of our body. It's known as a subtle part of our body, right? And so the chakra system is known to be energy systems within us that spin and spiral, and they are associated with certain energies. And in order to talk about those energies, we have to segment them into different centers. But understand your body is a whole kinetic chain. The system is one system. It's not separate, but for the sake of communication, we do categorize and separate things, right? So with that being said, we have our root chakra. Our root has everything to do with our foundation. And I want to talk a little bit about my personal experience as well as we work our way through this. So the root chakra has to do with the foundation. The foundation of what? The foundation of our psyche, our mental foundation, our emotional foundation, our physical foundation, our home, our childhood, how we grew up, and also the space that we dwell in now that we call home. That could be the physical shelter, and also it could be the home that is within us. It has to do with resources and safety and food and drink and appetites, right? So when we're looking at the root chakra and we want to grow in that area to be more actualized, I would say, or more sufficient, or we could use the word if we want to heal in the root chakra. We have to look at the word safety, right? So in your personal life, do you feel safe? Do you feel safe in your relationships? Do you feel safe on your job? Do you feel safe in your personal space? Do you feel safe emotionally? Do you feel safe financially? Within dating, how important is safety? How important is emotional safety? How important is financial safety? How important is physical safety, mental safety? That's what we're looking at. And we also look at the shadow aspect. What areas feel unsafe? When do you begin to feel unsafe with others? When do you begin to feel unsafe in your home environment or outside of it? These are the questions. So I'll stop right here and see if that makes sense. All right. So continue to tap the screen. We're talking about safety. Within that root chakra, we have the energy of protection, the energy of provision, right? So what is your relationship with those words within yourself and within your relationships? When do you feel protected within yourself? Safety, right? When do you feel protected within your relationships with others? What kind of provision is necessary for you to feel at home, at peace, without worry? We're talking about finances. We're talking about energy. We're talking about attention, intention, effort. What does it need for you? Does it take for you to begin to feel safe? That's the root chakra energy. So I want to share a little bit about my upbringing so you can see what that root chakra experience could look like in a real life circumstance. Hey, Kara, how you doing? Thank you for tapping the screen. They've been leaving me out hanging today. Like no taps, no talking, no nothing, child. I am doing very well. Doing very well. Thank you for asking. So growing up, thank you, I appreciate it. I grew up in New Orleans. I'm from New Orleans, and I want to talk about the masculine energy in my life, right? So right away, I want to say, when I say masculine energy, I'm not necessarily talking about human males. I am talking about a quality of energy, the energy of protection, the energy of provision, the energy of stability, my foundation, right? So when I look at my space of upbringing, my home, my childhood, my experience with masculine energy was I felt the protective nature of masculinity. My father, now I'm going to talk about some males, but also my mother has masculine energy, right? So my father was a police officer. And he was a police officer for over 20 years. And so, as you can imagine, that energy of protection was always available in my home. I felt stable because I felt protected. I felt calm because I felt protected. I didn't feel on edge. I didn't worry a whole lot about my safety and who was coming against me because I was protected. Not only was I protected because of his role in the collective, but because he was very much invested in my protection. Right? I could have been at school, I could have been around the corner, whatever the case was. If I would call my dad, he would make it to me before the police made it. And that has happened many times. I knew beyond the shadow of a doubt that he was going to be there. And not only would he be there, he was going to be effective while being there. Right? Because he wasn't just going to show up and go, oh, nothing's wrong. He was going to show up, let's say, and scale the neighborhood, the building, look around, use his flashlight. He was going to do whatever it took to secure the space that I was in. So I have a strong relationship with protective energy, masculine energy of protection. I value that. I still value it because that was part of what kept my heart calm and safe. My root chakra benefited from that energy. Let me know if that makes sense. My root chakra was built up through that protective energy. Okay? And that energy came from the outside. It was my father. So the energy was outside of me. So the beautiful thing about that is I felt secure within my physical space. The shadow side of that is I did not develop my own sense of protection for a long time. So everything has a light and a shadow. All right. So we're not calling things good or bad, right or wrong. We just know that there's light and there's shadow. So the shadow part of that is my inner protective mechanisms. My inner masculine was underdeveloped. I never had a fight in my life and didn't need to, didn't know how to fight. You know, if I felt insecure or unsafe, I would immediately call someone, and there's nothing wrong with that. At some point, though, I needed to shift into a feeling of support within myself some kind of way. Let me know if that makes sense. So my root very much values that feeling of outer protection. And also now in this space that I'm in my life, I value it within, right? It's important for me to have a safe home space. It's important for me to live in a safe neighborhood. It's important for me to be aware. It's important for me to know how to move, how to manage in spaces that feel uncomfortable. It's important for me to be protective with my children. It's important. And when I say protective now, I don't just mean physically, because that is important. I also mean emotionally. I also mean mentally. Right? It's important for me to dwell in a protective energy. Now, we come into a shadow aspect when either the protective energy can only come from outside and we become dependent on that, or we become overprotective inside. When I say overprotective, I'm not saying that people are wrong for feeling this way. What I am saying is the protection mechanisms come up when there is no danger. Protective mechanisms activate when there is no danger around. That's when a protective energy can be overly activated because it's not necessary, but it comes up. Now, this shows up as defensiveness, right? Somebody gives you some feedback or tells you what kind of experience they're having with you, and you automatically defend as if you're being attacked. And your body feels that. Your heart rate races, your blood begins to move into your limbs, you begin to get fidgety, your logic diminishes. This is what happens when at the root these energies are not in balance. So my goal here is to help you see into the root chakra and its development and see what you need to shift, where you need to shift. So a big part of my inner protective energy came from connecting with the divine. It came from deepening into my spiritual practices and understanding what really is in my nature to move around, to shift my power, I should say, to move around and shift. How am I supported by spirit? What does that look like? All of that mattered. Also, my connection with the dark divine feminine. When we look at the dark divine feminine goddesses, they are protective in nature, and every goddess has a dark component. And when I say dark, I do not mean bad. I do not mean evil. I'm not even talking about low vibration. I'm talking about protective. She will rise up and protect. So doing my goddess work and connecting with those archetypes and energies within myself enhanced them. So I no longer had to look outside for the protection, but I enjoy outer protection. Okay, let me just say that. I enjoy moving around in space where I feel looked after, where I feel guarded, where I feel the loving embrace of the people around me in my physical realm. I enjoy that, right? So in the root chakra energy, we're asking ourselves, hey, Nelly, when do I feel safe within myself? When do I feel safe with others? When do I feel safe in my partnerships and friendships? When do I feel unsafe? Let's talk about emotional safety now, shall we? Y'all tap the screen, please. And thank you so much for already tapping. Let's talk about emotional safety. When I talk about emotional safety, I'm talking about the ability to self express and be heard outside of yourself. That's what I'm speaking of right now. Just like I talked about protection being outside first, emotional safety often occurs or doesn't occur outside of you first when you're growing up at the root chakra. So if you had parents who were very involved in your emotional well-being, they wanted to hear your expressions, they encouraged you to express when you did, they moved into conflict resolution with you, they valued your emotions, most likely you feel or felt emotional safety. When you had parents who were going to make sure your emotional well-being was of the utmost priority, then you probably felt emotionally protected in case someone was caring for that aspect of you, right? So now let's say the opposite was true. The opposite is the people outside of you growing up didn't regard your emotions, didn't care what you felt, or didn't place a lot of emphasis on it. They didn't talk to you a lot. And even when they did, it was barking orders or punishment oriented or fussing. You most likely didn't feel safety outside of you, emotional safety, right? And so, if we look at, again, just like we looked at the way protection followed me throughout my life, in the way that I still value protection to this day, um, our emotional energy of safety travels with us as well. So, if you grow up feeling like your opinion doesn't matter that much or people might not pay that much attention, then you might shut down and not talk very much. You might suppress. You might not verbalize to the point where you don't even know what words to say sometimes. You don't know how to express because it feels so uncomfortable, so awkward. You feel suspicious about, do people really care how you feel? Right? You might not even see the point in communicating a lot of times when at the root chakra you experience low emotional safety. Now, for me, I experienced low emotional safety. It would take me to be in my 30s before I understood that, right? When you experience low emotional safety, you within, because it was not established outside, then you get in your relationships and you feel anxiety around communication. You fear being seen a certain way. You fear being looked at a certain way. In communication, you fear disconnection. And so you might suppress and not say what you really mean and get resentful. You might suppress and do things you don't really want to do and get resentful. Your root chakra is out of balance, right? And so that might be because the persons you are dealing with in adulthood also don't feel emotionally safe, so they can't offer it. It could also be that they are offering it, but you have not come into the practice of receiving that yet. So here's a question. Emotionally, where do you feel unsafe and where do you feel safe? Look at your relationships, whether they be romantic and friendships. Do you feel emotionally safe there? Do you feel emotionally protected? Do you feel emotionally cared for? Your emotions matter, and that's important, an important element in developing intimacy and closeness, emotional safety and physical safety, because that down regulates the nervous system. It allows the nervous system to come out of a stress state and into a relaxed state. When you feel relaxed, your soul feels more open. When you're not moving in anxiety, your soul feels more expressive, more creative. You are inspired. Your root chakra matters. Where do you feel mentally safe? Okay, so it took me to be in my 30s to realize, hey, I'm looking outside of myself for emotional safety and for mental safety and also physical safety. I need to understand how I can increase these levels within myself. It's not that I can't enjoy it. I definitely still enjoy it. I love a moment where I feel emotionally safe, when my soul can unwind and unfold, right? I love a space where I feel physically safe, where I'm not looking over my shoulder and I feel supported, right? I still enjoy that coming from the outside, but I had to increase those abilities inside as well, right? So some people never felt physical safety. Some people never felt emotional safety. So the personal work is coming into an awareness of this fact, number one, and number two, engaging in practices that build the safety within. So let's look at physical safety, right? So if you are a person who needs to feel physically safe, you need to feel it even when nobody is around. But you need to also feel it when people are around too, right? So what are some ways you can increase your physical safety? You know, some people purchase firearms. Some people take up a fighting technique. Some people self-defense. Some people magic. Some people spirituality. What are some ways that you can come into more physical safety so that your root chakra is more aligned, so you feel more at rest, more at peace, less on edge? Anytime you feel anxious, looking out the window, trying to see what's going on, somebody is coming, I might be affected. Your energy system is not calm. Your root chakra is active in a way that does not promote alignment, okay? Emotional safety. Anytime you do not feel emotionally safe in the witnessing of other people, you have to develop it inside. Even if it is coming from the outside, you still need to develop it inside so you can know what it feels when it's coming, like when it's coming toward you. Some people have never felt emotionally safe. So even if the environment was safe, they wouldn't perceive it as so. So how can we move into more emotional safety inside? Number one, we could start off with validating the self. You ever call yourself, I'm crazy, I'm stupid, that's weird, that's silly, I know this is dumb. All of that stuff is invalidating. Okay. And here's the key. If you invalidate yourself, you're not going to be able to validate others deeply, because you feel some emotions are unnecessary. You feel some emotions are weird. You judge emotions. Emotions are not to be judged. They are to be felt and understood. That goes hand in hand. Because some people just feel emotions, they don't understand them, so they act in ways that don't benefit them. You have to feel the emotion, understand the nature of it, but first you have to validate it. You have to see that it's important. You have to see that it's worth looking at. You have to see that it's worth feeling. You have to know it's worth expressing. You have to know that first, because if you don't know that first, then when you're being invalidated, you won't even know. You know? So self-validation is first and foremost. Your experiences are important. Sometimes the experience that you're having does not align with what's really happening. It's still valid. It may not be accurate, but it's still valid. And that's point number one. Point number two is the understanding portion. What I feel is valid for me. See, a lot of people, because they don't exist as internally validated, they immediately want somebody outside to validate what they're feeling, to acknowledge it. That's not a bad thing to have other people validate and acknowledge. But it is a hard thing when you don't do it for yourself and also the people outside of you don't do it. Sometimes people outside of you will validate how you feel. But if you don't validate yourself, you won't receive deeply what they're saying. They'll say you're a good person and you'll be on the inside like, no, I'm not. They'll say you're really great, you're fantastic, you're amazing. And on the inside, you'll be like, no, I'm not. So that's why you need to start with it on the inside. The root chakra asks us to look at safety. Right now, we're talking about emotional safety. Your emotions are valid. You also need to be able to express the word of the emotion. What are you feeling? Some people have not thought very deeply about their emotions, so they really only know some basic ones. And that's the start. They know I'm mad. They know I'm sad. They know I'm disappointment. But there's a plethora of emotional vocabulary to help describe the quality of it that goes on inside yourself. So you got to Google some emotional words and enhance your emotional vocabulary. There's a difference between sadness that is due to grief and sadness that is due to distress or hopelessness, right? These are all different qualities of feeling, and you need to become better at verbalizing, right? I feel, I feel hopeless. I feel disappointed. I feel depressed. You know, sometimes I hear people say, I feel disappointed, and I know I shouldn't feel like that. Yes, you should, because you feel it. Because you feel it, you should feel it. Now, hey, R-Man, whether or not that feeling coincides with truth, that's another story. But we're at part 1. How you feel is valid. So I'm going to stop right here and see if y'all could tap the screen. And if y'all don't want to, you don't have to. I'll just come back and teach this at another time. Tapping the screen lets me know you're still there. Tapping the screen lets me know that you are still interested. Tapping the screen exposes me to more viewers, okay? We're talking about emotional safety. In your relationships, thank you, Flow Like Water. When do you feel safe? What is a person doing when you feel safe emotionally? What are they saying? What are they not saying? You need to deeply look into that. Some people can tell you they don't feel safe, but they don't know what it takes to feel safe for them. And that's a hard thing. So it's important for you to validate how you feel, but also understand, what does it take for you to feel safe? You need to be able to express that to other people. I feel safe when. That also helps you to know when you are not feeling safe. This person is invalidating my experience. This person is trivializing my experience. This is not a space where I want to continue to share. See, we need that notification. Otherwise, you would be endlessly pouring your heart out to people in spaces that cannot hold it well. It's a self-protective mechanism. So what does it take for you to feel safe? What kind of behaviors help you feel safe, right? And what depth of it, right? Because there's different layers of safety, different layers of behavior and emotions and such. When do you feel unsafe? What is the person doing when you feel unsafe? What energy are you getting from them? What do you think about that on the inside? How does that shift your perception? How does that shift your behavior? All of these are important, and these are things to talk about when you're dating. These are some good conversation questions. What helps you to feel emotionally safe? It's good so you can understand who you're talking to. It's good so you can self-assess and go, that's not me. You can understand what this person's possible expectations could be through having these conversations. When do you feel emotionally safe? When do you feel mentally safe? The root chakra energy is about the foundation of safety and stability. What does it take for you to feel stable inside your connections? What does it take for you to feel stable at your job, in your home, within yourself? All of these things are so important. Stability. What is the foundation of your connections? That's another thing to ask. So a lot of times when we connect with people and we connect over pain, the foundation is unstable because all of the things that would require stability, like safety, right? Mental safety, emotional safety, physical safety. I am well within this connection. I am feeling connected and rooted. All those spaces are not involved when you're connecting with pain and through pain. So when you are developing your connections, you want to make sure that you're connecting out of interest, curiosity, the desire to explore, the desire to know and be known. These are reasons to connect. Looking at the root chakra, connecting because you want someone who understands your pain. That's not stable at the root chakra. Connecting because you want someone to just be a companion with you because you're lonely, that's not going to be a strong foundation at the root chakra. Does this make sense? And I'm going to end it right here. And I think I'm just going to do a series of teachings where we move through the chakra system, looking at, number one, how can we create and cultivate the energy inside? How can we co-create and cultivate the energy outside for healthier and happier living? That's it. That is it. Root chakra, safety, emotional, mental, physical safety within and also in our outer spaces. That's super important. Ashe, hey babe. Ashe, ashe, ashe. So I'll be back. I'm going to post this video on YouTube. So if you're just popping in, you can watch it. And I will come back probably later today with part 2. So part 1 is the root. Part 2, we're going to move into the sacral and see what that looks like inside. How can we come into more balance inside and in our relationships as well? That would be also very So I'm going to come back later today. I'm thinking toward the evening, and we'll get more into this. All right, so if you're new here, please do consider subscribing. Also follow me on YouTube. You can also find me on my website at veronicamarie.com. I'll talk to y'all soon.